Hello, my name is Nigel Blake, and what I'm looking to do with the aid of a few slides here is to just walk you through the best methods of looking after, maybe repairing, resealing, even recolouring your imprinted concrete. My own background, I've worked with the imprinted concrete for in excess of 20 plus years now. So imprinted concrete itself should be extremely easy to look after. Really, top up coat of sealer every 3 to 5 years, maybe 2 coats of sealer, and your driveway or patio never needs to get to the condition of the illustration, the picture on the left here. But if it is the case, and for whatever reason your driveway has not been maintained, then all is not lost. Certainly we can achieve tremendous things, and as you can see with this example, even the water board have come in here and made a very rudimentary repair. And this customer is actually one of my own customers that we went to do the job, and basically was saying, look, if you guys can't do a good job for me, I will dig up the whole lot and start again at the cost of several £1,000s. But for the sake of I think about £300 of materials and a bit of time spent, then his driveway certainly went back to a condition where digging it up wasn't an option anymore. He was totally happy with the end result. But again, an example here, this driveway was actually 28 years old, had never had anything done to it at all, and really one of the major benefits of the regularly applying your sealer is that the concrete itself never gets exposed to the elements and for the vehicle use, because once the vehicles start wearing through the actual protective sealer, once the concrete becomes exposed to the elements, that's where the material that initially is what's called screeded into the concrete, the colour hardener, tends to start to wear and lose its effectiveness. And obviously the difference between here and here, we had there was a lot of catching up to do in some areas. These kind of areas, we actually ended up applying sort of 4 or 5 coats of sealer to get a good level of protection there. But again, hopefully your driveway is nothing like this condition, and just a simple coat of clear sealer is all you need to keep it looking good. But another example here, again, if this looks familiar, all is not lost. It takes a bit more time, bit more trouble, bit more expenditure on materials, because it's just been left far too long before being maintained. But as you can see, excellent results are achievable. So the underlying message here is that if you've got imprinted concrete, just be prepared every 3 years, maybe every 5 years, to give it those top up coats of sealer, and you will basically know when it needs a top up coat of sealer, because it will just start looking tired. What I mean by tired is that it will start looking very dull. Maybe algae will start to establish itself where the concrete is no longer water resistant, it's just holding the moisture. If you're unfortunate enough to have an oil stain on your vehicle, rather than again just being on the surface, that will start to penetrate into the concrete itself. And basically, the longer it's left, then the harder it's going to be to get the driveway looking as good as new. Just outline, we just outline what can happen here if unsealed. But if it is looked after on a regular basis, imprinted concrete is the strongest product out there, laid correctly, very easy to maintain. And certainly locally to me, I can see jobs that were laid 20-25 years ago that still look as good as new. Oh, excuse me. So what do we need? We don't need a tremendous amount of materials, but preparation is always the key to any good job, really. And with the imprinted concrete, again, any oil stains can be treated. If there is a moss or sort of algae, just green build up on the surface, this material diluted down a few days before you go to clean with just a standard pressure washer, and that will be easily removed. But certainly it's worth an application of the driveway cleaner prior to pressure washing. Now the driveway cleaner is designed to really remove all the pollutants, the residue from car tyres, residue from exhaust, and maybe different cleaning fluids that have been applied over the years, and just the general pollutants that get into the pores and that of the concrete, which will stop the sealer being able to penetrate properly. Just scrubbing in the diluted driveway cleaner sort of half hour before you pressure wash is going to make life a lot easier when it comes to cleaning, and will certainly help the sealer key in, soak in, and penetrate properly into the concrete itself. So well worth the exercise. Now again, hopefully this is not you. Hopefully you've got no sort of cracks which are spoiling the look of the surface, but don't be too concerned. Again, if you think about your own driveway, whether it be 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years, 15 years old, generally once those cracks have occurred and the concrete has found, for whatever reason, its weakness, they won't change too much. So it's not as though they're gradually going to get bigger and the driveway is going to, for all intents and purposes, fall apart, but it's just going to spoil the overall look. So we've got a couple of products that will help you cannot get rid of cracks once they've occurred, but you can certainly disguise them so they don't become unsightly. So you can see here we've got some, a sort of fine crack here, and then some larger chips. So with these larger chips, I'll be taking some of the repair compound, which comes to you sort of ready coloured, mixing it with a little bit of a sealer, and then just troweling in to these chips and larger areas of damage. And then where the cracks are shallower, such as here, I would just be working the product in dry, so pushing the compound in dry into the cracks there, and then just sealing over the whole thing to help disguise it. And we've got some other pictures where the process has been sort of completed of repairing the cracks, but very simple, and again not a lot of expenditure on product, on material, but well worth the exercise. Some surface damage here that's been created by maybe slightly the mix of the concrete wasn't right, maybe the what's called the colour hardener, which is screeded into the concrete. Maybe this concrete was a bit too dry and that's delaminated, but for whatever reason, you can see I've just highlighted two products here. All I would do in this situation is take a jam jar full of sealer, add a little bit of colour, and then just basically build up layers of protection just by colouring it back with a paintbrush, maybe 3 or 4 coats to one. Get some sealer soaked into those areas to stop any further damage occurring, and also to build up sort of surface layer to disguise the damage. So so that would be done with a paintbrush. And then again, these larger chips, you'd just be mixing up a bit of the repair compound and sealing over that, sealing over that as part of the process. But never going to be perfect, but should certainly reach a condition where you can say, yeah, I'm more than happy with that. An area of more concern, I would say, is if you experience any kind of sealer that's lifting from the surface. Now, generally that's because something has not been done correctly, normally at the very first stages when the driveway had been laid and then subsequently washed off. You can see here where the base colour of the concrete is much lighter than these areas here, and it's these areas where the sealer has lifted, exposing the lighter colour. Now try not to be confusing here, but during the process of laying imprinted concrete, your colour is screeded in to the wet concrete, and then what's called a release agent, which is like a coloured dust, is added to the surface of the concrete so that it does two things. Firstly, it stops the mat sticking to the wet concrete and peeling this kind of base colour away, and certainly when done correctly it creates what's called an antique effect, so a slightly two-tone. Well, in this example you can see there's not really much of a two-tone, it's more of a solid sort of dark slaty or grey, which is telling us that not enough, the release agent was not cleaned off properly. Okay, and then what's happened is when it's been sealed, there's a residue of a very fine powder on the surface of the concrete. The sealer hasn't been able to penetrate through this, say, like flour-like dust on the surface, and then and the telltale sign is it normally starts where either vehicles roll across the surface or where there's pedestrian traffic. That's where it starts to the sealer starts to peel initially, because warm tyres will effectively peel the sealer off and the foot traffic will start to scratch the surface, etc. Now there is different things you can do. So we feature here a sealer repair fluid, which is can be very effective in thinning down the sealer that's there, basically spreading the release agent, thinning everything down, helping it penetrate into the surface correctly. Or you can use very aggressive strippers, like graffiti type removers, to take all the sealer off, but the cost can be prohibitive. The chemicals are not very nice, and it can be a real kind of quite unpleasant process there. So my suggestion for this exercise would be, if you've got any kind of concerns about the sealer lifting, if anything I'm saying here is kind of resonating with yourself, load up a couple of pictures, give us a call, email them down. We can assess your driveway or patio on an individual basis and give the right advice on the best way to fix it from there. And also, of course, if the temperature is too hot, if you can imagine if it was maybe sealed when in very warm temperatures and the concrete was very wet, very hot, sometimes that sealer just won't penetrate into the concrete itself. It will just dry as it hits the surface, and that can be another reason why it peels away. Or a big mistake people make is sometimes they want to change the colour or darken the colour or do something dramatic. They add too much pigment for whatever reason to their sealer, basically take it from being a sealer to a paint. A paint's just sitting on top, whereas a sealer will penetrate into the concrete, and where it's just sitting on top, again the same problem can occur with the sealer peeling away. So as I say, if you're experiencing anything like this, before you spend good money and maybe don't get to the bottom of solving the issue, send us a couple of pictures down, let's have a chat and see where we go from there. So hopefully none of the problems with the peeling sealer and the cracks and the chips is relevant to you, but maybe rather than just being able to apply a couple of coats of just clear sealer, which is certainly in an ideal world what we should be doing every few years, and maybe just in the last coat adding some anti-slip additive for the safety aspect. Maybe we need to do a little bit more work, maybe needs a little bit of colouring. And you can see on this driveway here, pretty good condition, nothing much gone wrong, but where it's been sort of left much too long without again sealing, then the elements and vehicular traffic has taken the surface colour away, and looking very patchy, very tired here. But you can see again, telltale sign where there's no traffic and the sealer has stayed in place, still look pretty good in these areas. Okay, so what we're looking to do here now, as you can see from the picture below, the before and after looks great now, but generally on these areas, it could be we make the point here of levels of existing sealer. We can see here, there is some existing sealer. Here there's basically none, and maybe some areas here there's a little bit. So it could be on this, if this was your driveway for example, it could be that you end up maybe giving 3, maybe 4 coats of sealer here, a couple of coats here, a couple of coats there. You get the point that you need to be flexible in your mind in terms of if you have to spot treat areas to get them all on a looking even, then so be it. Okay, now colour matching and mixing, you're always best to stay with the original colour that was used. And here, I say, if I was looking at this job, I'd be pretty confident that's a kind of deep tan type colour. But again, if you've got any concerns on the colour, we supply samples, you can send in some pictures, whatever we need to do to help is not an issue there. And when it comes to the actual mixing, making a point on the mixing here, as a rule of thumb, if you never use the colours for the sake of it, and when you use the colour, you use it in extreme moderation. What I mean by that is you don't want to make the mistake that was mentioned on the previous slide, where you're taking lots of the colour tint, you're pouring it into your sealer, and you're basically turning it into a paint. That's a mistake. Okay, it's just sitting on top. It's going to wear very quickly. It could peel off. You could end up, creating a real issue for yourself. But for example, if I was using this colour tint in this silk sealer here, I would be looking to use, this is 25 litres, I would be reluctant to be using more than about 1/3 of a tub of colour throughout the whole drum. Now that could mean, as I say, these areas have got 4 coats, these areas 3, maybe 2, doesn't matter. But what I'm looking to do is build up thin layers of sealer with not too much colour, so I am enabling the sealer to properly penetrate into the concrete, not just sit on top. And again, if you need further advice on this, absolutely no problem, just get in touch. But certainly last coat, you're looking to add your anti-slip additive, and you can see the joints here, the expansion joints. Again, final part of doing the job is backfilling them, capping them off with a mastic designed for concrete expansion joints, just to stop them filling up with muck, etc. And again, we're featuring a broom here. Why do we feature a broom? For several reasons. That is the best piece of equipment to actually do the job. One, it enables you, if you're using anti-slip additive or colour tint, you keep stirring all the time. It will keep that colour and the anti-slip evenly suspended within the sealer, not soaked to the bottom, which can be sort of very dangerous in terms of you get a big splodge of colour in one area, no colour in the next, could end up a right mess. So that's why you use your broom. But also, these products will cover roughly, dependent on condition, maybe 4 to 6 square meters per litre. Materials are not cheap. Last thing you want is to leave little valleys of resin in these joints, little puddles of resin. Again, that's to the detriment of the job. So your reason you use a broom is that you can sweep it out and use it as sparingly as you go. Now we've only got 2 or 3 more slides, just showing some more examples there, and at the end of that there's a short video, 2.5-minute video, that will just summarize some of the points we've been talking about so far. Okay, so just looking at what can be achieved. This was the job we was looking at earlier, which needed the spot treatment. You can see where we've repaired the crack here. You can see it's sort of hardly noticeable, whereas in the earlier slides it was very, very obvious where the crack was. Again, an example here that unfortunately just been left too long without sealing. A lot of the aggregate coming through the concrete there, but again, what can be achieved, leave it looking as good as new. and yeah, a job I worked on myself. People were very unhappy. To me it didn't look too bad, but they were very unhappy with the general condition of the drive. They didn't realise that these kind of products were available to transform it, and were, you know, considering spending, I think it was in the region of £10,000, having a new driveway, you know, literally digging all this up and starting again, and of course for an absolute fraction of the cost, it's been totally transformed, and it's one actual drive that I pass quite regularly, and sort of 5 or 6 years later still looks absolutely great. So I'm sure that customer felt that that was money very much well spent. So, you know, that's hopefully giving you a few insights into how to look after your imprinted concrete. As I say, that certainly watch the short video featured here. I'm sure you'll find that very beneficial. But if you've got any questions or need any help, support in any way regarding your imprinted concrete, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And thanks very much for watching.